Welcome back to the 2 Months podcast presented by BioSteel and powered by Go Goat Sports. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall. I have a very special guest with us this afternoon, early this morning here in the Alberta region. He works with TSN. He's the TSN Hockey analyst and TSN's director of scouting, Stanley Cup champion. Cool Buttons podcast. Craig Button, the man, the myth, the legend is here. So, Butts, how's it going?
It's mostly myth, just so you know. You can't hide behind this anymore. There's too much. There's too many records out there. There's too many ways to verify what is true and what isn't. So I'm just going to go with the myth part and not try to portray anything that isn't true.
Yeah, you got that right. Hockey DB doesn't usually tell any different stories. Sometimes they might, but usually it's pretty good if you want to get some hockey database there. But obviously, you kind of just came back here. You're back in North America. You're overseas for a great tournament and another successful win from Canada. Kind of your thoughts from the Hlinka Gretzky Cup that you saw from every team that was there. It seemed like it was a really fun tournament to cover.
It's a wonderful tournament because it's really an opportunity for players entering their draft year in the most part. There's some players that are still a year away, but for them to really kind of zero in, play on a national team. This is Canada's best opportunity to put together their best under 18 group. They don't get that in April because players are playing in the CHL playoffs and some are just not able to participate. But this is a great opportunity, not only for the players in Canada to come together, but to really test themselves against really good international competition, to test themselves against players that they're going to be talked about with respect to the 2024 NHL draft, that they're going to be competing against for years to come at the U20 level in the NHL. And so, when you continuously rise up the ranks, and that's what the players for Team Canada have done, and there's players that weren't selected to that team that are very promising. So I always try to remind people that just because you didn't make that team doesn't mean that you're not a promising player. I mean, just means that there was some areas of the team that they were looking to fill out with different players. It doesn't mean that you're not capable. And I think that that's really important to say. So I think the experience for the players, it's intense.
Yeah.
And for the Canadian players, it's doubly intense because when you go to that tournament, you have a bullseye when you're wearing Maple Leaf on the front of your jersey. Everybody's going to give you their best game. Everybody's going to be fired up to play against you. And Canada did not have the benefit of a camp this year. Usually they bring 44 players to a camp and they have a really good competition and select their team from that. And certainly there's some players that are disappointed when they're told they're not part of the team, but they didn't have that this year. So a lot of their team building happened after they got overseas. They went to Hungary. They participated in a pre-training camp, had a couple of pre-tourney games, and then they started out. And certainly their first game against Finland was not. They'll tell you it's not what they expected, but it was one of those areas where you now get to test yourself. You get to say, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what we need to do, and that's everybody. That's the players. That's the coaches. It's the management group, and they did a terrific job of just pushing themselves ahead, and push is what they did. I mean, they had some real challenging games. I mean, the game against Slovakia was challenging, and yeah, it ended up 14-4, but at 3-2 in a building that was pretty energized, they had to find a way because they had been in a similar spot the previous game against Finland and let it slip away. They didn't let it slip away. The game against Switzerland, they had to win, and they had to win by 3 to qualify. They had to win by 5 to get to first place. They did both.
Yeah.
And then the game against Czechia in the final game, I mean, that was a fantastic game. It was a competitive game, and the players find out a lot about themselves. They find out what they're capable of. They find out that they're capable of more than maybe they even realize they could do. And they also understand, and I think this is one of the biggest things that Hockey Canada does, and the other federations are doing this as well. It's not about a team with all the best players. It's about the team that has the players that can form to be the best team. Yeah. And that takes a lot of different areas of commitment, a lot of different areas where players have to dial in, and that's penalty killing, that's being able to establish a different style of play in the offensive zone, being heavy, being hard, being skilled, all the different elements that make up really good teams. Canada put those on display, and they win the gold medal again. It was really, really positive for Hockey Canada. I think it was really, really positive for the tournament as well. Last game, gold medal game, sold out. There people had cushions sitting on the aisles, the concrete aisles. You could not squeeze another person into that building. It was a phenomenal environment. Czechia was in the game. They lost in overtime, and certainly they had their chances to win, but just a fantastic game. But the environment was phenomenal. And for the tournament, I think that becomes even more significant than just the fact that, you had players being able to participate and show what they're capable of for the 2024 draft.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun ride for sure. And there were some really good players on Canada that we'll just get to real quick here. The one that really stood out to me was Malcolm Spence. Obviously, the game-winning goal, the skill set that he has. And I know Anthony Stewart, and he's been on our podcast, and I know Malcolm's been a part of that hockey equality program that Anthony's running with his wife and his brother. Kind of thoughts of the skill set and what we think, fans that might not have watched Malcolm. You think that you can explain maybe his game a little bit more and what this guy could do at the NHL level when that time comes?
I saw him play in November of 21. He was at the Silver Stick tournament in Ontario, and he was playing with the Mississauga Senators. That team had Michael Misa on it. They ended up winning the OHL Cup the following March. And the first time I saw Malcolm, it was just unbelievable, the skating that he possessed. He was already an NHL skater at that age. I mean, that's what stood out. And the impact that he can make with the skating, at that age was noticeable. I mean, he put defenders on their heels very quickly, and he took advantage of that speed to be disruptive, to use it to his advantage for scoring chances, and also to make life really uncomfortable for opponents. It's exactly what you saw at the Hlinka Gretzky tournament. And again, when I talk about everybody learning over the course of the tournament, coaches have to learn the players too. They have to be comfortable with putting the players in different situations. So the players had to demonstrate and exhibit some qualities that built confidence from the coaching staff. Malcolm did exactly that. He became what I would call, the full two-way player for that team. Penalty killing, power play, even strength. They moved him around the lineup, but he became a player that was very, very purposeful for Team Canada, whether it be on the penalty kill, whether it be at even strength, some of the power play. He generated so many different types of opportunities for his team and for his line mates. And it was no fun to play against him if you were on the other side, because he closed on you quick. He knew how to cut you off and use. A lot of players have speed, but don't know how to use it to the greatest effectiveness. That's not the case with Malcolm. He's not only an excellent skater, he's also very, very smart. He's highly competitive. And now when you have a player that can play all those different areas of the game and play them well, understand it's not just about playing them, it's about playing them well. To me, you have a player that's going to have a long NHL career. And when you watch what he did, obviously he scores the golden goal in overtime. But it was a perfect example of what Malcolm was doing over the course of the tournament. The speed, put the Czechia defender right on his heels. He created the open space by pushing the puck ahead. Nobody was going to catch him. And the goaltender, Malota, who had been so good for Czechia, there was no chance he had with that type of speed coming at him. And, that was a microcosm of Malcolm's entire game. But to me, again, and a good reminder for young players, there's a lot of different ways to contribute. Malcolm's a high-end talented player, but he didn't look at other areas of the game as below him, as beneath him. He embraced them. He not only did that, but he also fully exhibited the capability and the aptitude to function and to really be a top-notch player. I mean, he'd be a first-round pick easily this year's draft in 2024. Yeah. He's not eligible until 2025. And it's too easy to say first-round pick. I think he's a top 15 player. And so he'd be a top 15 player in this year's draft. I think he's absolutely, definitely a top 15 player for the 2025 draft. And top 15, yeah, that could be 3, that could be 7, that could be 11.
Yep.
Top 15, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is, and the chances of them going on to a great career is even good too. So, no, it's fun to watch, and obviously it's great you touch on it because obviously in the broadcast too, you're touching about the connection that he had with Michael Misa. And what was your thoughts of his tournament? And I think the lines are a bit changed around that, maybe sparked the team a bit from what I was watching. I think you guys were touching that on the broadcast, you and Gord, but. And Michael Misa, obviously exceptional status, is going to be with the Saginaw Spirit. I believe they're going to be hosting the Memorial Cup this year, so we're probably going to get a lot of him. But your thoughts on what we have from him this year, coming up this great hockey season?
Well, you're right. Saginaw is hosting the Memorial Cup, so Michael's season begins in July of 2023, and it won't end until the end of May or early June of 2024. As Saginaw hosts the Memorial Cup. I mean, he had a terrific season as a 15-year-old turning 16. Had an injury that kept him out, but what he was able to do for Saginaw on a very good Saginaw team, and he made that team even better with his play. And when I watched Michael and Jeff Jackson, who just was named the president of the Edmonton Oilers, represented Michael. But I go back to that November 2021 Silver Stick tournament in Toronto area. And Jeff and I were talking, and it's pretty obvious you're watching top players that are going to be part of the OHL draft at that time. And we got talking about him, and right away, what I noticed about Michael was the creativity, the imagination, but also doing it functioning at high speed. I said to Jeff, I said, he reminds me of a lowercase Jack Hughes. Jack's skating was a little bit more advanced at that age, right? But I mean, Michael's a very strong skater, don't get me wrong. But that ability to create space, that ability to understand, where that space is, where the opportunities may ensue, how to take advantage, how to exploit. Excellent hands, excellent playmaking ability. He's also got a very, very deceptive shot, so he can score as well as he can make plays. And he's a player. I call him an F1 driver because he can speed up and slow down, and he can corner. When you're running Indy 500s, on the Indy circuit, you're just going as fast as you can around the circuit. An F1 driver has to be able to corner, has to be able to speed up, slow down, and everything that goes with it. That's Michael Misa on the ice. He's not just racing around. He's thinking, and he understands how he has to take advantage of it, and he does it. I thought he was very, very strong for Team Canada. Keep in mind, he's a year younger than just about every single player in this tournament. And when you're 16 competing against 17-year-olds, that can be a big difference. Michael didn't have any problem competing. He didn't have any problem getting his opportunities, taking advantage of his opportunities. Hey, in the overtime in that gold medal game, he himself could have won the game 3 or 4 times, with the opportunities he got. And, a terrific young player. But we're going to have to wait to watch him until the 2020. Well, he won't be selected as the 2025 NHL draft. We'll have lots of opportunities to watch him. Now, I'm gonna preempt you here because I was asked this by Gord during the broadcast a number of times, and I think it's just important to reiterate. Gord, asked could he be a candidate to be invited to Team Canada's junior camp this coming December, and I would say yes, he is a candidate, and always just go and play. That's what you have to do if you're Michael Misa, but it's not a 16-year-old tournament. And keeping this in mind, Max Celebrini is going to be on that team. And Max Celebrini is 17. And Max Celebrini is an outstanding young player. It's hard to take a lot of young players under the age of 18. It's hard enough for 18-year-olds to compete at that tournament, let alone players 17 and 16. So while I am not going to preempt Michael Misa's participation for Team Canada, I don't think it's I think the probability is very, very low. And a big reason for that is because Max Celebrini is that good. I think Max Celebrini is going to be a real frontline player for Team Canada at the World Juniors. So Doesn't mean Michael Misa is not a good player. Doesn't mean he might not earn. Doesn't mean he won't earn an invitation. But it's a 20-year-old tournament. It's a 19-year-old tournament.
Yeah.
It's not a 16 and 17-year-old tournament. And I think you got to keep that really in mind when you're talking about these young players. As excited as we are about their potential.
Yeah, no, that's good. Good thing to point out there for sure. I think it'll be and then the history just backs that up, Craig. So it's all good there. So let's move over to our NHL report.
You know what? I'm going to add one. We would be remiss. Okay. We would be remiss if we did not talk about Captain Berkeley Catton. Okay. Berkeley Catton was everything that you would want in a leader, on the ice, off the ice, and everything he did for Team Canada. He played in the U18 tournament in April. They won a bronze medal. Berkeley was a young player playing at different spots in the lineup. But I asked him at the end of the tournament, did that help you, really come into this tournament with a greater understanding? He said, absolutely. He said, my last game I played was on the big ice. So to me, it wasn't very hard to come and adapt. But when you watch that entire tournament, you watch everything that he did on the ice and knowing what he did off the ice, that is the definition of a leader. Berkeley was unquestionably the leader of this team. And his abilities on the ice, his play on the ice, and everything that he did for this team was so important for this team. And you got to when things aren't going well is the time when you need leadership. You need somebody to just say, hey, it's okay, and to show the way. That's exactly what Berkeley Catton did. I know how smart he is. I know how well he plays the game in so many different areas of the game. And I know people are going to look at Berkeley and they're going to say, well, what about this? What about that? I'm going to say this about Berkeley Catton. He reminds me a lot of Mike Richards. He might not have the same edge as Mike Richards did at that age. And it's a different kind of game than when Mike Richards was coming into the NHL. But he's a better skater than Mike Richards. And I will just say this. Who doesn't want a Mike Richards on their team? Berkeley Catton, to me, has those types of qualities in terms of showing the way in so many different ways on and off the ice.
Yeah, Mike Richards, what a fun player he was to watch, throughout his career. Obviously, cut short through to injury, but did he leave it all on the ice for sure? And very well said on Berkeley there too. So great to finish off our junior report there. So we'll move over to the NHL here, Craig, sponsored by Sheena Boychuk, our NHL report. So Austin Matthews doesn't have he's not extended, so he's got the 1 year left. So the other day I was kind of doing some research and, does he compare to Alex Ovechkin? And so I was able to pull these stats up, Craig. So Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin, when they were 25 years old, 25 years old and 300 days into their career. And then Ovechkin, the same stat. It's 2 goals apart. So Ovechkin has 301 and Matthews has 299. So I just threw it out there on Twitter, just said thoughts. And, Twitter, you get anything. But, and a lot of feedback came back was Austin Matthews still isn't in the conversation of being one of the elite players or one of the top 5 players. I just want to know where you kind of stand with where he's at in his career to this point. We had it in our Eternal Mutts group chat with some of our co-hosts, and even they didn't have him in the top 5, at least. And some of them didn't even have him in the top 15. But where are you at with Matthews, the goal scoring, his development? And, I thought his 2-way game kind of took a step this year, but your thoughts?
So if I knew nothing about hockey, not a thing, if I'd never known about hockey and you came to me, Josh, and you said to me, Craig, I want you to kind of consider these two players in terms of performance. One player, might be the greatest goal scorer that the NHL has ever seen. And that is, and you would say to me, his name is Alex Ovechkin. I'd say, wow, that's pretty impressive. Whose record is he going to beat? You would say Wayne Gretzky. And I would say, well, who's Wayne Gretzky? And you would say, well, he's the greatest goal scorer to this point, greatest point producer, arguably the greatest player that's ever played. I go, wow. So this Alex guy is pretty good. And then you would go, but I want you to think about this other player that at the same age, when they were the same age and exactly same age, yep. This other guy, his name happens to be Austin, and he's 2 goals behind him at the same stage of his career. And I would go, wow, that's pretty impressive. You're telling me that this Alex guy might be the greatest goal scorer, and the guy, this other Austin guy, is only 2 goals behind him at the same age? I'd be an idiot to say he's not an elite superstar. I'd be an idiot. I'd be an idiot if I knew nothing about hockey. I'd be a bigger idiot at knowing about hockey. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
The guy's a superstar.
100%.
Austin Matthews. He's won the Hart Trophy. He's won Rookie of the Year. He's been a first team All-Star in the National Hockey League. He's a superstar. He's not top 15 in the league? Give me a break.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
he won the Hart Trophy at the end of the 21-22 season, scored 60 goals. Not common. Bottom line is, like, anybody that doesn't think that this guy isn't a superstar, you know what? He outperformed his contract. He's outperformed his contract right now. But Alexander Ovechkin, I think it was a 13-year contract, if I recall correctly, signed his contract back then. Everyone, well, oh my God, can you believe they're giving him that? Ted Leonsis, I don't know when he was 6 years into it. He goes, yeah, my only regret is I didn't sign him for 17 years. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we have limits now on contracts. Like Alexander Ovechkin at $9 million doing what he was doing. Like, are you kidding me? Austin Matthews, I don't know what his term is going to be. His term will dictate a lot of what the contract dollars will be, but he's just under $12 million a year. The cap's going up in the 24-25 season. We know that definitively, right? So where does he fits in as one of the best players in the National Hockey League, dominant player in the National Hockey League, scoring goals, which is the hardest thing to do in the National Hockey League. He's going to get paid. He deserves to get paid. Is that 13.5 million? Is that 14 million? I don't know. But people go, well, he doesn't deserve more than McKinnon or doesn't deserve more than McDavid. McDavid signed his contract a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so when McDavid comes up for his contract, he's gonna pass Austin Matthews and Nathan McKinnon. You can't do anything about that right now. In today's climate, Austin Matthews is a frontline player, and there's not, other than the Edmonton Oilers, and I say that, other than the Edmonton Oilers, maybe Colorado because they have McKinnon, 30 other NHL teams all want Austin Matthews on their team and would be willing and ready to pay him $14 million a year.
They 100% will be. I was surprised. I threw it on every platform that we have. So our Instagram, our Twitter, our Facebook, everything. And I threw it on Friday night and I was just astonished. And then yesterday it kind of blew up in our internal group chat. And I'm just like, he does the hardest thing in the NHL. He does it at the best pace. And he's done this since he broke in. Like, I believe actually he even leads the league in the most amount of goals scored since he broke into the National Hockey League too. If not, it might be a 1 or 2 goal difference in that aspect too. But very well said by you. I knew you're going to be passionate just like I was. It's crazy. It's how these things happen. And, you know, I don't want to tag a fan base to it, but it is interesting how things get out when you, and I wasn't even trying to compare him to, say, McDavid. It was just 25 years old, 328 days into their career. There's a 2-goal difference. So that's all it is. It's just the data backs it up.
Hey, I heard it back in Alex's day. You know, oh, you'll never win with Alexander Ovechkin, never all this. Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Like the stupidity that exists in commentary, you know, oh yeah, you'll never win. I'll take my chances on Alex Ovechkin. You know, the number of times I've heard we signed Brett Hull in 1998 in Dallas, and the number of people came up to us unsolicited and told us you'll never win with Brett Hull. What's amazing, Josh, is that when we did win, none of those people came back and said, geez, you know, want to apologize for being wrong. Right? I'm going to take my chances on the Brett Halls, on the Alex Ovechkins, on the Joe Thorntons, on the Patrick Marleaus, who didn't happen to win. I'm taking my chances on them. Make no mistake. I'm taking my chances on Jack Eichel. People say you can't win with them. Give me a break.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, if I knew nothing about hockey and I said, and you gave me the case, and I said he wasn't elite, I'd be an idiot.
Yeah.
Knowing about hockey and not saying it, a bigger idiot.
Correct.
And quote me on it.
Yeah. There we go. We will for sure. You know, a bit of a change here now. David Krejci this morning announced his retirement. About 2 weeks ago, Patrice Bergeron does the same. Do you feel it's going to be tough for the Bruins fans? That's 2 pillars that were down the middle for them for many years. I know Krejci took that 1 year off, but how do you think the Boston Bruins kind of regroup here with two pillars of the game hanging up the skates here?
Well, I mean, the Boston Bruins have shown over a long, long period of time that, they lose great players, they trade great players, and they continue to be competitive. There's times when they've been a little bit down and whatnot, but understanding, where your group is at, and understanding, okay, what's realistic, I think is a hallmark of any successful sports franchise. Are you going to replace Patrice Bergeron tomorrow? Not a chance. I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, David Krejci, who was an excellent second line center. You think about what he did for that team over the many years that he played there. I mean, you just don't replace those guys. But it doesn't mean you're not going to be competitive. You're going to have to find ways to take advantage in different areas. You're going to have to find ways for players to contribute in different areas. Jim Montgomery's an outstanding coach. Don Sweeney has shown an ability to adapt and maneuver. Remember this time last year, Josh? Everybody was saying, "Oh, the Bruins, they might miss the playoff. They might miss the playoff. They might miss the playoff." There was a lot of questions about the Boston Bruins. They went out and had the best regular season in the history of the National Hockey League. So what I would say about the Boston Bruins, we talk about culture, we talk about internal competition. They're not an organization that accepts mediocrity, that's going to sit back and go, "Oh yeah, we're just we can't do anything about it." Throw their hands up and play. They're going to be competitive. Their goaltending is excellent. Their blue line is excellent. They have a lot of good young players. I mean, David Pastrnak had 60 goals last year. Brad Marchand's still a top player. Opportunity for other players. They may have to do it. They'll probably have to do it in different ways. But at the same time, it's opportunity. And the Boston Bruins are not one they're going to sit there and bemoan where they're at. They're going to celebrate what Bergeron and Krejci brought to their team, and they're going to move forward, just like they did when Bobby Orr got all his injuries and couldn't play and then moved on. When they traded Phil Esposito, that team just kept going. I mean, Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito, think about it. Two of the greatest players that ever played the game. Boston, just go look at the record after Bobby, with his injuries, and then when he left, and then Phil when he was traded. Just go look at where they ended up.
Yeah,
pretty darn good. The Boston Bruins have established that they are in it to win it, and in it to win it means different things at different times. But they're going to be competitive. That I have no doubt.
Yeah. They just, even when they won their cup against the Vancouver Canucks, and they went to some cup finals after that, and I know they lost them, but they still stayed in the race, and they did lose great key people from that cup run. So it's and it's interesting when Milan Lucic was on with us, he said, I think about the cup that we lost more than the cup that we won. So I found that interesting too, that stuff like that happens for some players.
But Josh, I can tell you this, I was part of the Stanley when we won the Stanley Cup in '99. It was wonderful. I think back to 2000 when we lost to New Jersey. When you're the President's Trophy winners and you're expected to win and you win, you just did what you were expected to win. You'd be amazed how many players that have lost in the Stanley Cup talk about. Scott Niedermayer talks about losing in 2001. Scott Niedermayer won 4 Stanley Cups, and he talks about losing in 2001 because you think about what could have been, and that's what drives the top players. That's what drives them in terms of thinking, "Oh, what could have we done different? What could have we done?" So it doesn't surprise me one bit that Milan Lucic has the same feelings, because you go, "We were this close." You think about everything you did to get that far, and you're this close and you fall short. It becomes one where you try to make sense of it, because it breaks down to a moment here, a moment there. You go, if it just swung here. We're not talking about getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. We're talking about teams that lost in the Stanley Cup final.
Yes, you got that right. All right, let's finish up on our Edmonton Oilers report, sponsored by our friends at Chatified Salon and Barbershop. They got 3 locations. We were all there on the weekend, Craig. I brought my nephew there, who you met last August, and Phil brought his 2 little guys with him too. So Chatty took care of us all. So at some point in this hockey season, if you ever get some time here, Craig, I'm going to pick you up from the hotel, and we're going to go to Chatified and maybe just say hello. You might not need a haircut, but maybe we'll go say hello to the guys or something like that. So
Sure, no problem.
yeah,
Love to do that.
yeah, exactly. So Shaddy's great, and they are the official sponsor of the barbershop of the Edmonton Oilers too. So the Oilers here, obviously McLeod gets done. Bouchard still needs to get done here. We just had Noodles on. He was on our last podcast episode, and talked about maybe the pace of play with Bouchard needs to be a bit higher at times. That calming presence that he does have, some kind of probably goes in at his advantage towards an end of the game. But what do you think of Bouchard here, and how do you think that next contract looks like? It seems like it's going to be a bridge, maybe around 4 million or a little bit more. But the progression that he made and the importance that Matthias Ekholm had with him last year too.
Well, the vast majority of defensemen in the National Hockey League need good partners. Not that they can't play on their own, but there's very few defensemen in the league that drive play on their own. Partner play is really, really important. And certainly Matthias Ekholm coming into Edmonton really, really gave, I think, the team a boost, but certainly gave Evan Bouchard a boost too. I was one on the record. I thought that they should be going after Jacob Chikrin. I thought Jacob Chikrin, with his contract and his age, would have been an excellent fit. Listen, Ken Holland made the better choice, and and I can admit that. I can look at that. Matthias Ekholm really added to the Edmonton Oilers something that was significant and needed, and will help them compete. There's no question about that, and help Evan Bouchard. I've watched Evan Bouchard play since he was 14, 14 years of age. And I can show you notes from when I watched him at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And it's always been the same thing with that. Always pace of play. I long ago, I've come to accept that the pace of play that Evan plays at is where he's comfortable and where he's most effective. The only thing I've always said about Evan is that, to me, all he has to do is be firmer with the puck. And I think that that's where he's become so much better in his game. He's got great intelligence. He's got great vision. If you want Evan Bouchard to race up and down the ice, you're going to be mad at him all the time. If you want Evan Bouchard to throw big body checks, you're going to be mad at him all the time. That's not his game. His game is with the puck. And his game has developed so significantly over time. He used to be loose with the puck. And when you have the puck all the time and you need to play 25 minutes a game, you pace yourself, you're going to get – the NHL level doesn't afford you that. When you have that puck on your stick, you got to make good plays, and you don't want to be ending up in your own zone. I think Evan has progressed significantly. I think he's a really important part of the Edmonton Oilers. I think Matthias Ekholm is somebody that just helps him just continue to be who he is. And keep this in mind, Josh. When they traded Tyson Barrie, they're going, why would you trade Tyson Barrie, one of the best power plays in the league? You know why you trade Tyson Barrie? It's because you're trying to get somebody that's different, that adds to your team like Matthias Ekholm did, and you have Evan Bouchard. That power play never slipped one bit with Evan Bouchard there running it. And to me, Evan Bouchard's a really, really solid player. The next perfect player that comes along is going to be the first one. There's no perfect players in the National Hockey League. And if you want to look at what Evan doesn't have, you can spend all your time on that as long as you want. Evan's a really good player, and he's a unique player. Because there's not when you start looking around the league, how many guys can do what Evan Bouchard does?
Yeah.
Not a lot of them out there.
Yeah. He's got the shot, he's got the vision.
Yep.
And all that. So everything's looking good on his front there. And a big contract will be good for him. But yeah, you're right. There's not a perfect player in the National Hockey League. It's just not there. They're striving to be that every day to get better, and you add new things as you go in an off season. Like Gord Miller talked about with Brian Hayes this past week on Overdrive. Like, one summer, Crosby just didn't like his face-offs, just hunkered down in a basement and just worked on his face-offs. Like, then he became a 60% face-off player in the next season, in the years to come, and still is that. So it'll be great. It's great to see what these guys can do, and as their training goes on. We have a fan question here. We'll finish off with this. This is from Nick. He's a big Rangers fan. He's just kind of concerned. Where are you at with the Rangers? The future. Laviolette comes in. Now he's almost coached every team in the Metropolitan Division. But where are you at with the Rangers here going forward? This is from Nick.
Hey, listen, they have one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League in Igor Shesterkin. So check mark there. I think their blue line is excellent. I think they have an excellent group of defenders back there. Different elements that they bring to the team. We know how good Adam Fox is. He's won a Norris Trophy. Trouba brings something. Keandre Miller is a player that just continuously gets better and better and better. You start to think about the Braden Schneider, hard, aggressive. They just have, to me, just such a well-rounded blue line. Up front, Mika Zibanejad might be one of the most underrated players in the National Hockey League. He does it all. I think that they have so many different elements in their game and so many different tools in their game. I think a big key for the New York Rangers this year, and it's going to be interesting to watch, and I think that the individual players have to take it upon themselves. We saw Philip Hedl take a real step forward. Now I think Alexis Lafreniere and Capo Caco have to do the same thing. I'm not saying Alexis Lafreniere has to become an 80-point player, but I think those players, Caco and Lafreniere, have to take some of the offensive pressure off some of the top-end players on their team and be able to push their play further ahead. If Caco and Lafreniere can become 55-point players, they're just shy of that now. I mean, that's not they're 40-point guys somewhere around there. And you start to go, well, Craig, that's a pretty big percentage lead. Yeah, it is. 52 points. I'm not locking it at 55. If each of them can get 5 or 6 more goals, 10 more points, that gets them into the 50-point range, right? That takes pressure off your team. That's 2 players adding 10 to 12 more goals to your team. That gets you on the right side of games. That gets you on the right side. It takes some of the pressure off of the coach, because now the coach is going, well, I can count on these guys to score, or they're doing it earlier in the game where I don't have to turn to those guys later in the game and load it all up. I think that's a real significant part for the New York Rangers taking a step ahead. Peter likes to have his team play an up-tempo game. I thought last year in Washington, with all the injuries they had, I thought that I thought Peter Laviolette did a fantastic job in Washington, getting that team to play so well defensively. John Carlson was out. Nicholas Backstrom was out. They had injuries throughout the course of the year. They lose Connor Brown early, who's now an Edmonton Oiler. I thought Peter did a great job, with a team that was shorthanded for a large part of the year, losing big players. I think he alone can come in now and make a real big difference. And that's what Chris Drury was looking to do when he made the coaching change and hired Peter. But I think if Alexi and Capo can step in and just take their games up, they don't have to take it double. They just take it up a notch. I think that would put the Rangers in a really good position.
Yeah, I think they'll bounce back here, and I think Lavi, with him going there, maybe gives them a complexion, just another voice. I'm a big fan of Gerard Gallant too, but it's interesting times in New York, and that's a team that everyone's always keeping an eye on. So very well said by you, Craig. Anything you want to plug? How are things with you? You're getting ready to just take a little bit more time off, and then the great season upon us here. How excited are you for this upcoming season, junior hockey and all that fun stuff there?
So it's always fun. We get to this point in August, the Hlinka Gretzky tournament occurs at the same time, and it's a little bit of a break. It's a hockey break, and it's fun to go and get a real good feel for those players at that point in time. And now you start to see what I'll call we're back to a normal schedule. We're back to a normal schedule. The pandemic created a lot of different challenges on schedule. Forget about the individuals and everybody around the world. Now we're back to a regular scheduling. Oh, who's this? Who's this? This is our young, good-looking guy.
Yeah, this is Bruno, our co-host. He's the other mutt, I guess, because I'm muttless. So now he just decided to wake up from his nap. So you say,
Bruno, there he is. Just waking us up. There he is. Oh, no, he says, I'm done.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's exciting, and the NHL season will start, and then it won't start at the beginning of October. It'll start more in the middle of October. We'll get to a really good sequence where again, the normalcy of it for the players, for the fans, for everybody, I think it'll be really, really positive. And I think that, there's always excitement with the new season. That's the beautiful thing. It's young players coming up for the draft. It's teams that have made maneuvers in the offseason to try to position themselves to compete and be competitive. And that's what makes it exciting. You talk about the Rangers. I think the Calgary Flames are a playoff team this year. I think that they just didn't perform to the level of their capability last year. I think that they're very capable of bouncing back and being in the playoffs. But, it's not going to be easy. Daryl Sutter said this 2 years ago. It's hard to make the playoffs. And I think that reality is hitting all the markets, because the way I look at it is, in each of the conferences, there's 16 teams. There's 12 or 13 teams in each of the conferences capable of making the playoffs. We know there's certain teams that just are incapable of making the playoffs at this juncture. But when you start talking about 12 or 13 teams in each of the conferences capable of making the playoffs, that's 24 to 26. There's only 16 to get in. Yeah. Keep that in mind, how competitive the National Hockey League is. And it starts in game one. It starts in game one.
It does. It does. And I think we'll start getting a litto bit more of this conversation, because obviously we see and it's great you touched on the the Flame situation there, because I think Oliver Shillington coming back is going to be a hidden kind of secret, because just like you talked about what Evan Bouchard can do and the skill set he has, I'm not comparing Shillington to Bouchard, but the way Shillington can skate the puck out of danger and get the puck up, that's a complexion that Flames team really didn't have a lot last year. I think Mackenzie Weegar got better, and I think he had a good World Championship, and hopefully that transitions over to the NHL season. But I think Shillington coming back, he was able to prove himself as a top four defenseman with Chris Tanev. So I think that'll be a big talking point for a lot of teams. I don't know if you want to jump on anything like that before we jump out.
Yeah, I'll be really quick on Oliver. I think Oliver took a tremendous step ahead 2 seasons ago and showed himself as somebody that could be a real strong contributor for a 50-win team. A 50-win team. Keep that in mind. He wasn't just in the NHL. He was on a 50-win team, a top defensive team. But think about him leaving last year. He said he had to get a lot of his mental health taken care of, and he just wasn't in the right frame of mind. So think about how well he played, considering what he was going through. And we don't even know what he was going through. But so now he feels he's in a much better space, a much better place. How much better can he be? And I think that, like, we talk about injuries, we talk about somebody returning from a knee injury or from a shoulder injury, and they're going to be healthy and they've had a full summer to rejuvenate. I think about the Colorado Avalanche. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with mental health. Yep. The same thing with Oliver Shillington coming back, feeling much better about where he's at mentally and with his mental health. That's reparation as well in terms of getting ready to play. And I think that Oliver, going through what he went through last year and acknowledging it and working to heal, I think the Calgary Flames will be a beneficiary of that.
Yeah, very well said, and good way to end out the podcast. And for those fighting that battle of mental health, reach out, get that support you need. If you guys need us, we're always here for you guys too. But if you need some direction of getting help from some other people and the professionals, just let us know. We will do our efforts to help you guys out. You're not alone, and enjoy the week ahead, everyone. Be kind, be humble. Craig, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.